All right, man, peace. So, brothers, this is going to be another entry into the series, Are You in a Toxic Relationship? And it's going to be featuring Mr. Earl Thomas, the current free safety for the Baltimore Ravens and the former superstar free safety of the Seattle Seahawks, as well as his wife, Mrs. Nina Thomas. And it's very obvious to me that first name, Nina, might not even be her real first name. It might just be a nickname, because she damn sure good with that Nina. But brothers, once again, we have to make sure that whenever we get into these relationships, and I always say this, women are wonderful, they're beautiful. When they're in their right mind, understand their place, and they're being properly moderated. In order for that to happen, we have to understand what our roles are and what we're going to tolerate and what we're not going to tolerate and what we're ready for. A lot of cats are not ready for these relationships. That's why I have a series called Are You Ready to Be Married? But since these two are already married, I decided to cast this under the Are You in a Toxic Relationship series, because I think that concept is more pertinent to this storyline than the Are You Ready to Be Married topic, even though this would fit into that as well. Because it's very clear to me that Mr. Earl Thomas, he wants to have his cake and eat it too. And you just cannot do that once you decide to contractually obligate yourself. Please understand that if you decide to sign that contract with that woman, she basically becomes your overlord. For lack of a better term, she really does. You become the vassal, she becomes the owner. That's why you must pay her in the form of what they call spousal support. If and when they decide to get quote unquote divorced, he must still subsidize her existence, because she is his overlord under the dictates and the rules of this system in this current Babylonian society. That's the bottom line. Many people might not like this, but in the concept of marriage, the woman is a possession. You own her, not in a two-dimensional way, but with the understanding that you preside over her. Of course, you have to be loving and caring and nurturing, etc., as does she. But you are the head. Y'all confer, you communicate, you love one another, support one another. You're going to have your little issues. But the fact of the matter is that dysfunction has become the normalcy within these so-called relationships, and people accept that, well, you know, things are going to happen. Back in the day, things are going to happen meant that maybe you guys had a little tiff, a little disagreement, so on and so forth. You made up, you move past it. Nowadays, quote unquote, things are going to happen means she's sleeping with her coworker. And now you guys have separated and y'all going to get back together. Or you decided you was going to get drunk and slap the broad around. Y'all stepping away from each other for a few months. You doing your thing on the side, she's doing her thing on the side. Neither one of it works out. Now y'all back together, quote unquote, for the sake of the kids. That's not a real relationship. That's toxicity. So we have to understand why we get into these conventions and what we're going to do once we're there. And the most important thing is to be able to accept monotony. That is the core component of any relationship. That's the core component of success. Can you accept that the vast majority of your days are going to blend one into the next? If you cannot accept that, then you're not ready to be in a real relationship, much less the contractual obligation known as quote unquote marriage. So anyway, when it comes to this case right here, Mrs. Nina Thomas decided that she was going to try to intimidate Earl Thomas, once again showing, as I've already stated, that she believes that she is his owner. Now, on another level, he might just be a monarch athlete and she's the handler and she's trying to keep him in his proper place. I'll be going over that over the course of this video, maybe in the aftermath or in the epilogue portion. But there have been some hints in regards to certain photos that might detail that Miss Nina Thomas is a handler and Mr. Earl Thomas is an asset. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Welcome to TV Sports. We have one of the craziest stories we've ever reported for you right now. My name is Evan, along with Michael J. Babcock.
And let me also say this. This story, in regards to how things transpired, was so extreme that even the three simps on the left side of the screen had to make certain revelations and had to expose their understanding of the dynamic between the male and the female in this society when it comes to the double standards. Even they had to acknowledge that some of the extreme circumstances of this relationship showed that there is a double standard in how a male would be portrayed had he been the one who had resorted to some of the tactics that Nina Thomas resorted to.
Robert Littell is here. Let's say it a lot, Evan. Yeah, let's get right to it, man. This is insane. Earl Thomas, NFL star.
The cat said this is insane. That's one thing that you brothers have to ask yourself. If you're in a quote-unquote relationship with a woman and you guys are having these knockdown, drag-out fights every day and things are starting to escalate, you have to understand the woman, to a certain degree, feeds off of that. She feeds off of the frenetic, chaotic aspect of the relationship, especially once she gets bored and she's no longer infatuated. They are going to try to start little stupid shit, maybe escalate it into higher level shit, because they feed off of the chaos into order paradigm of a relationship. They love to start arguments and start fights and then make up. In their view, that's how they try to bring back some of the quote unquote excitement in the relationship. Most women anyway. Of course, you cannot put all of them into the same basket. But many of them, once they're no longer infatuated, that's when they're going to try to start nitpicking, and then that might escalate into other things. So you have to be very, very aware of that. As a man, you have to set the tone of the relationship and what you're not going to allow. And if she can't deal with that, have a nice day.
Best defensive players in the league, Pro Bowler, All-Pro, part of the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl team a while back, now with the Baltimore Ravens. His wife was arrested for allegedly holding a gun to his head and threatening to shoot him after allegedly catching him cheating on her. And the whole story is just crazy. So we obtained the police report.
Well, crazy is based on your perspective. For Earl Thomas, it might not be crazy. And once again, one of the favorite slogans or catchphrases in this modern super woke environment that we're living in is quote unquote white privilege. Let me tell you, brother, something. Quote unquote white privilege has nothing on female privilege. There are things that a woman is allowed to do to a man, especially a so-called black woman to a black man, that even a so-called white man is not allowed to do to a so-called black man today. I'm going to say it again. There are things that a woman is allowed to do to a man, especially a so-called black woman allowed to do to a so-called black man, that even a Caucasian man is not allowed to do to another man in this environment today. So we have to start using that term female privilege. I'm not going to go so far as to say black female privilege, even though they have a certain amount of privilege in this society that they don't want to acknowledge. They certainly have it. They're trying to jump on the racialism train right now because the liberal Caucasian has given them permission to, with this Black Lives Matter, the way that we've been inundated with propaganda about the Black Lives Matter, or what I call the Black Lesbians Matter movement. So right now it's popular to be talking about race and the victimization or the self-victimization agenda. But let's recalibrate it and make it accurate. The female has far more entitlement and far more privilege in this society than even the so-called white man does. At least at the middle class level of this society, or the average class level of this society.
I'm going to spell the whole thing out for you, okay? So the woman who was arrested, her name is Nina Thomas. She got married to Earl a couple of years ago. It was a big old wedding. We have video. He wore a crown.
All these niggas that go through these huge stunts when they get married, they always end up getting divorced within a couple of years. They come into their wedding ceremony with all types of crowns and capes and sashes on, and they're putting on a play and a singing show, a step show, all this shit, and they end up getting divorced in 2 years, wasting tens of thousands of dollars.
Also, Wilson and Sierra were there. A lot of famous people were there. It was a big deal. But it seems like, it doesn't seem like, their relationship was falling apart, according to the police report. Here's the deal. On April 13th at 3:41 in the morning, cops in Austin, Texas got a call about a...
Look at all this silly shit. This is a part of the wedding. This is part of the wedding proceedings. Got 30 broads there dancing with this chick, and I guess she's getting to play out her Beyonce fantasy.
At a random house. When they got there, this is what they found. Quote, "We observed that a black female wearing an orange sweater with a knife in her hand, identified as Nina Thomas, was chasing a shirtless black male identified as Earl Thomas with a pistol in his hand around a video."
Now keep in mind, the pistol that Earl Thomas had in his hand was the pistol that he took from her. So somehow she got a hold of a knife and proceeded to chase him around the home or the abode that they were in at the time. So it's very obvious that she was dead set on either trying to put great fear into his heart or to harm him, which shows once again that she has an ownership mentality over Earl Thomas. Had that been a man doing that, we'd still be talking about him all over the news. You barely heard about this because it was a woman doing that to a man.
Nina and Earl were ordered on the ground and to drop their weapons. Both complied without incident. The pistol was identified as a 9mm Beretta with no magazine, but one round in the chamber. Now that is important, and I'll get to that in a second. So once they had both Earl and Nina subdued, they decided to start interviewing people at the scene, including a number of women who were in the house and a number of women who were outside the house who were with Nina. This is essentially what cops found during their investigation, right? Nina says that she had been in an argument with Earl earlier in the day because she had an issue with his drinking.
Allegedly, she claimed that she argued with Earl Thomas over his drinking. And as long as he's not drinking and driving, why is she concerned about his drinking for? Is it truly excessive? Or are you just trying to play his mother? Because you have certain females like that who'll sit there and watch you as you're enjoying yourself and cast certain eyes on you as if they're your mother or there's some type of guardian figure. Why are you imbibing to that degree? So on and so forth. But Earl Thomas and this female have been together for a very long time, so I'm sure that she knows what she can get away with and what she can't. And I'm pretty sure that there's very little that she cannot get away with, because most of these dudes today will tolerate anything for the sake of the maintenance of their relationship, especially if they've allowed themselves to quote unquote fall in love. What you'll find is when you approach any and all relationships, not just with the quote unquote opposite sex, with a strategic and a rational mind, you'll be able to remove people who are not really fit to be with you early on. And don't get it twisted. You don't want to be some extra staunch, austere, draconian person who's always trying to act like you have 5 million walls built around you. You do have to be relatively communicative and transparent and open with anyone, not just your partner, but with people that you allow into your life, your friends, your family, etc. But you do have to have certain boundaries that people cannot cross, because if you don't have those boundaries, the fact of the matter is that most people will try to infringe upon you as a human being. They will try to get away with certain things. A lot of times, love is a way for people to enter into the inner sanctum of your being and see what they can find as they rummage around inside of your head or inside of your spirit. So you do have to have a certain level of protection. Now, people have to earn the right to get to really know you. And I just have a feeling that maybe Earl Thomas met this person when they were both very young, and he was not particularly as experienced with the opposite sex as he is right now. And they've just been together so long that they've established a very toxic standard for their relationship that's going to be very difficult to eradicate. It's almost like you could be great at a certain thing. Maybe you're a phenomenal speaker, orator, administrator, etc. But people who grew up with you are not necessarily going to respect you because they knew you from when you didn't know anything. So that might be the case with Earl Thomas and Nina Thomas. And on top of that, as I've already stated, it's also highly possible, I won't say necessarily probable, but highly possible that she's a handler and he's a monarch athlete, aka an asset that she's presiding over.
And that he had called his brother Seth to pick him up from the home. So they left the house. Well, she got suspicious that he was up to no good. So she went into his Snapchat account and found a video of Earl with another woman. That's what she told police. So she used some kind of technology in the Snapchat app to find his location and tracked him to a home nearby in Austin.
I don't understand why the FBI just does not hire some of these liberal females to find out where Jimmy Hoffa's hidden. Find out who killed JFK. Put them on the case, because they clearly have some of the detective skills of Sherlock Holmes. Either that or Earl Thomas is a complete idiot, and it's probably a mix of the two. A lot of these guys, they do a lot of philandering through apps on their phone, so on and so forth. And the woman has a way of figuring out what the password is that these dudes use, because for the most part, they're going to use something like their mother's birthday, the child's birthday, their middle name, some silly shit. And the woman figures it out just like that. If it's one thing that many women, not all women, but many women get a great thrill out of, is catching somebody in something, not even just their man, but anybody. Because that's how they live their life. They live their lives, for the most part, from theatrical moment to theatrical moment. Everything in between is boredom to them. The woman is galvanized by two things, basically, and that's envy and boredom. Are all women like that? No, but the vast majority of them, those are the two energies that galvanize their lives. Boredom and envy.
She rounded up two of her friends and also got a gun with the intention of going to the home to confront Earl and whoever they found in the house. Well, when they got there, they got what they wanted. They found Earl in bed with another woman, along with Seth and another woman. And according to the police report, one of the women who was in the house said that Nina pulled out the gun, started pointing it at everybody, and said, quote, "I got something for all you hoes."
What you gonna do? You gonna spray up the whole house? I got something for all you hoes.
And she admits she found Earl, held the gun to his head with the intent to scare him. She stated that she took out the magazine thinking the gun could not fire without the magazine and admitted to disengaging the safety, but she was unaware that the gun had a round in the chamber. When Earl took the gun away from her, because Earl says he wrestled the gun away from her, she admitted to chasing him outside with a knife until police arrived, okay? Cops say they found video from one of the women inside the house.
And these are the shenanigans that a quote-unquote real man has to put up with. To be a quote-unquote real man in this society, you have to run from a woman who clearly is out of her fucking mind. Now, had he defended himself and maybe did a judo throw on the broad and threw her down to the ground, she would have claimed some type of injury. She would have claimed spousal abuse, so on and so forth. And it would have ran its course through the media before it eventually was revealed that he was defending himself. So those are some of the conundrums that you can catch yourself in if you decide that you're going to establish a serious quote-unquote relationship with the wrong female. So we have to make sure that we're extremely scrupulous in the person that we're with and why we're with them. What are some of their thresholds? And the woman will show you many of her thresholds relatively early, especially once she starts to move past the infatuation phase.
One of the women pulled out her cell phone and started recording the whole thing, and they say that they can see that Nina had the gun at Earl's head,
Nina had the Nina.
Foot away from his head, and it can be clearly seen that Nina's finger was on the trigger and the safety is disengaged. The takeaway from this is that she didn't know there was a bullet in the chamber, and she had her hand on the trigger, she was in an emotional state, and the gun close to Earl's head. He is lucky to be alive right now.
Is he really lucky to be alive, or is this just another entry into the adventures of Earl and Nina Thomas? I promise you that this was not their first rodeo when it comes to shit like this. A lot of toxic people, they love this stuff. In their mind, it adds to the sex. They go through these escapades, and the next thing you know, they have the mind-blowing makeup sex and so on and so forth. So a lot of times you have to just leave these type of people alone. Remember, two negatives make a positive. That's why two toxic people, they enjoy being around one another. I brought this up in other videos. Cats always ask, why is it that modern day females seem to gravitate towards dysfunctional dudes? It's because the woman by nature loves chaos. So she's going to gravitate towards chaotic dudes. The woman, for the most part, is not willing to quote unquote settle down with a man who has his shit in order until she's in her late 30s, early 40s at the earliest. No matter what they say. These broads in their 20s and all that other shit, they're trying to run around and see how high they can raise their dick count, no matter what they say. I don't give a damn if they're with somebody and been with them since they were 22 years old. They're still trying to do little things on their job with somebody who they like and so on and so forth, for the most part. Are there exceptions to the rule? Absolutely. But in this society, modern day Babylon, the woman is going to do what she's allowed to do. And the whore aspect of the woman is exalted. So they're going to gravitate towards toxicity, whether it's toxicity in a person or toxicity in a relationship. And they get off on trying to recreate the energy of the relationship into a begging energy. They need the man to always feel like at any moment he could piss her off and now he has to beg to get back into her good graces. That's the goal of most modern day liberal females in a relationship, is to get the man properly trained like a dog, where he has to fear when she's going to get upset about something or what she's going to get upset about. And for the most part, they can't exert that type of energy until they get him to marry them or impregnate them.
What's your blessing? It was a miracle that gun didn't fire, that he is alive. She didn't pull the trigger because she thought that she couldn't fire anything because she thought that there were no bullets in the gun, but there were. Okay. Earl says that essentially corroborated the story that they were in the house and that she and her Nina and her crew rolled up and went crazy.
Nina and her clique. So this guy is dominated by the feminine principle, because just for his wife's friends to feel comfortable doing that, that should tell you that he's dominated by the feminine principle, not only by her, but by her friends. Also that she's going to choose her friends over him. So what really is his place in the overall convention of what he claims is marriage? A lot of these guys don't even understand what the hell they're doing.
I don't know how he was able to wrestle the gun away, but even after he took the gun away from Nina, he says that she continued to attack him, hit him several times, while two members of her posse that she rolled up with were each brandishing knives and threatening people in the home. Cops say after interviewing everybody, they ultimately arrested Nina and the two women of her crew. Nina was arrested for burglary of a residence with intent to commit aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, family violence. The other women were arrested for burglary of a residence, family violence. I don't even know where to go after.
And most of those charges are not going to stick. Brothers, if you my homeboy, or y'all 2 or 3 of my homeboys, and I say, yo, I think this bitch is cheating, 999 times out of 1,000, your homeboy gonna tell you, okay, man, so just, talk to the broad, get to the bottom of it, and figure out what you want to do from there. If she confirms it, just leave her. They're not gonna say, okay, I'm getting in the whip. All 3 of us, all 4 of us gonna go find that bitch. We got the Ninas ready, we got the knives, we gonna go all out. They ain't doing all that shit. But these broads, they were so into the theatrics and so into the drama, and most likely disdained Earl Thomas because they took their homegirl away from walking that hoe strip. And I've touched on this in other videos. A lot of these females, they have friends who don't want them to get married because they're going to lose one of the members of the hoe herd. Because that's what they are. They're a herd of broads who go out from club to club and bar to bar, quote unquote, turning up and seeing if they can land them a baller or just play dudes. So once they lose a member of their flock or of their herd, they're upset about it. They won't admit it, but as long as that woman's husband treats her well, they'll stay cool. But if they feel like they can, they'll try to inject themselves into it. Really deep down, they hope that she divorces him, rakes him over the coals, runs him through the court system, and they can get their homegirl back and they can go hit the clubs again. That's really what they're hoping for, and that's why they grabbed them knives up and went over to the house to go, quote unquote, help her out.
I can't believe this happened. This is one of the craziest situations we've ever reported on.
Well, you know what they say, hell has no, fury like a woman scorned.
Yes, they do say hell has no fury like a woman scorned. There's also a saying that there's a thin line between love and hate. Always keep that shit in mind. There's a very thin line between love and hate.
Now, like you said, it's very scary that with the bullet in the chamber, which a lot of people don't know, they're not like experienced gun owners and things of that nature. She would have pulled the trigger, like you said, thinking that it's just going to click and to scare them. This is
or maybe, pun intended, she was trying to trigger something within Earl Thomas. Once again, it is a relatively good possibility that she's a handler for Earl. And beyond a shadow of a doubt, if she's not an MK handler over Earl Thomas, literally, she is in an extended sense because she clearly has control over this dude.
Totally different story. Obviously, there's a lot of deeper things going on here that they really need to work out. I'm never speechless, but I'm a bit speechless on this, Mike.
Yeah, it's an absolutely wild story. I think we're all lucky that this didn't end even like worse with Earl or somebody else getting hurt. But on one hand, I feel like a touch sorry for her.
Let's also understand that when a woman's acting like her, it's very clear that she's been digmatized.
A really crappy thing to happen. I remember when we covered their wedding and it was a really joyous occasion. So to see that it's wound up with him cheating on her and stuff is bad. But no.
Allegedly cheating on her. Allegedly.
What? Under no circumstance can you ever go to somebody and pull a gun on them. That just can't be the answer. So she has to pay.
That's the answer if she thinks that she owns him.
in some way. I wouldn't like to see her go, spend 15 years in prison, but I think she...
Which is what she would deserve, but I doubt if she'll even get a day in prison. I doubt if she'll even get a day there, because Earl Thomas, he already knows who he's the property of. So he's not going to allow the mother of his children to go to prison for years and years based on an event that occurred that he'll probably blame himself for, no matter how heinous her reaction.
To pay some type of price here, because for those women and for Earl, that's got to be a terrible situation to having gone through, to basically see your life flash before your eyes. That's awful.
Yeah, I think she's lucky that she hasn't been charged with attempted murder yet. I mean, look, she is facing a first-degree felony, and that carries, prison time if she's convicted of that. Yeah. So it's not like she's off the hook here. This is wild, and as the story develops, we'll be covering all of this on TMZSports.com.
I do have one question, though, before you go, Evan, is that this happened in April, right? And, we're May 6th. Are they still together? Or are they separated? Because it doesn't seem like an environment you would want to go back into. And they have children and stuff.
Robert.
It depends. Maybe that's the environment that has always existed. There are many people who love dysfunction. They view it as excitement. They tolerate certain things. And then like anything else, your level of tolerance gets higher and higher and higher and higher. It goes from little words that you tolerate to actions that you tolerate.
Actually talked about that when he posted a video Wednesday night addressing our story, and he actually said he and Nina are talking once again. Take a look at this video we posted.
So my agent just hit me and said that I'm going to be on TMZ tomorrow from an altercation that happened with me and Nina. So just wanted to get ahead of it, and I mean, it's really not anybody's business. It's pissing me off that it got out, but it's the world we live in today.
I'll say this, brother, and I understand that you don't want your personal business out in the street. We all go through things in life, but there are things that we can all learn from situations like this. To be honest with you, there are a lot of dudes at home with some woman, and they're suffering in silence because they've been trained to believe that a part of manhood is allowing a dysfunctional, acidic, toxic-ass woman to emasculate you on the daily. Most likely because that's what you were raised up around. When you were raised maybe by your mother, maybe in a household with all women, dominated by your mother, your granny, your sisters, etc. A lot of these guys, they become accustomed to that shit. Just being spoken down to because you're a microcosm of the father who's not in the home because maybe he got ran out of the situation. So there are a lot of different dynamics and components to stories like this that make them good for evaluating exactly what's going on with certain societal issues. But once again, I understand why Earl does not want his business out in the street.
But instead of talking about this, just keep us in your prayers.
Yeah, bro, I'm definitely going to pray for you. I'm going to pray that should this situation happen again or get worse, that you're able to learn from it in a better way and make a better decision. Because I promise you that had the roles been reversed and you did that to her, she would have been subject to so much pressure from friends, family, and social media that she would have been left with no choice but to leave you. No doubt about it. So that's why I state that there is a woman privilege or a female privilege that we have to start to analyze. Who knows? I might even make this the first entry into a new series on woman privilege. Because once again, they're throwing around this term white privilege so much to try to create or foster more of this Hegelian dynamic of black versus white, when there are a lot of other issues that the so-called black man has to be able to assess. One of them being the woman privilege, because that's more likely to impact your life than even the quote-unquote white privilege is, or white rulership really is.
And stuff like this happens, bro. You know, we try to live the best lives we possibly can, but sometimes it don't go as planned. Just pray for us, you know, as we go through this stuff. You know, we're back talking.
Good luck. Y'all back talking? Are y'all talking to each other or at each other?
You know, I'm seeing my kids, so just keep us in the prayer.
Once again, brothers, please keep in mind that before you sign that contract with that woman, understand what that entails. We have to operate on a very high moral high ground once you sign that contract, because it's like any other contractual obligation. If she decides that she's mad about something, that's why they give the woman so many outs. Once again, they created the concept of irreconcilable differences just for the woman, because they know how capricious her nature is. She might wake up one day and say, I just don't like this guy anymore. That's why they have irreconcilable differences. So know what you're getting into. Peace.